Morning. Today's video is about a short discussion on the root causes of autism and what parents need to know. So without ado, let's get started. So I'm Dr. Juliana Nahas, and I'm a functional medicine pediatrician with extra psychiatric and developmental training. And I bring this knowledge just for information only. This is not medical advice on this channel, but it is definitely information that parents need to know and that will empower you to ask the right questions of your pediatrician or your developmental specialist if you're seeing one. So what causes autism? We want to approach this question from a whole body approach. It is not just about one thing that causes or triggers autism. Oftentimes, we see it as a neurologic disorder, but it also involves gut health, immune health, like autoimmunity, and other environmental toxins that could be contributing to the manifestation of the symptoms of autism. We want to look at biochemical individuality in the child. Every person is different. Even twin studies show that no two people are alike in terms of the components of their microbiome, their individual cells, even the way their DNA is expressing. So we want to look at bioindividuality, basically. Let's look at the genetics of autism, because oftentimes parents feel very guilty that, this is something they've imparted on their kids. And I want to take that guilt out as much as possible. It doesn't serve anyone to really beat themselves down. You feel disempowered, you feel helpless, and that's not going to move you towards serving your child any better. So I really want to take that guilt piece and put it to the side. We need to look at facts and what we can do to move forward. If we're handed this card in life, it's unfortunate, of course, but there are cures, there are things you can do. So I just want to say that up front. We can see that sometimes there are spontaneous mutations. Maybe 10 to 20% of cases are new genetic changes that happen during the time of conception. But if you look at sibling studies, we can see that 20 to 25% of siblings of children with autism also have autism to some degree. So there could be a genetic link there. In twin studies, it's definitely showing much more pronounced, such as 70 to 90% concordance in twin studies. But then, you have to beg the question, why are there 10 to 30% of those twins that don't have autism? So there's still an environmental component that we must look at, and that is where we can affect change. So I really want to give you hope to understand that just because you've been dealt the genes that you're stuck with it, not necessarily. And finally, in general, 50 to 90% of autism risk is attributed to genetics. What we want to investigate are areas that we can impact the child, and this is where we look at the environmental impact. When we look at gut health, we know from a lot of functional studies that there's gut-brain connection through the gut-brain axis. If the child has dysbiosis, leaky gut, or food sensitivities, this can play a huge role in causing the symptoms of autism. If the child is living in an environment where there's toxic metals or pesticides or petrochemical pollutants of any kind, these can also impact sensitive children, and we need to look at those factors. Nutrient deficiencies is a very common one I see in autistic children because they're such picky eaters and problem feeders. Basically, they only eat a few ingredients, which strictly limits their intake of nutrients. And that can really impact their development, their brain function, their speech, their social learning. And it's important that we look and study and test for these nutrient deficiencies because it's hard to guess just from taking a diet history alone. And finally, we want to look at immune imbalances because that also very much impacts the nervous system. So some of the dietary modifications I tell my patients to do, and again, this is not medical advice, this is just for information for you to know about and then go ask your particular practitioner what you should do in your case. But we can sometimes do an elimination diet to find out what potential foods are causing sensitivities. And unfortunately, this is a very difficult method in children with autism because they're so picky already and they're so limited in their diet. The next best thing is to follow a GAPS diet. It's good for supporting the gut. It's been studied for many decades now, and it has a lot of research behind it. Finally, we can just try gluten and dairy-free type diet to get started and see if that makes a difference in the child, and then try to figure out with testing what else the child's body needs. Now, supplementation and testing is a huge, huge component of functional medicine. As you've probably heard me say in other videos, this is my bread and butter. This is where I put all of my energy when I'm working one-on-one with patients. We have to look at testing because you cannot tell by guessing. Even a good history gives you clues, but doesn't give you hard data. And I like to be objective when I'm suggesting and recommending supplements. So I like to test and know. Some of the tests we do are stool analysis, an organic acid test, a heavy metal testing, maybe genetic profiling. It's not done on everyone. It is more expensive, and really, frankly, we cannot change the genes, but having a knowledge of what is the genetic blueprint gives us an idea of how to use supplementation to help override some of the genetic deficiencies. Some of the supplements we recommend are probiotics, vitamin D, magnesium, fish oils, but always, always consult your practitioner to see what you need to start your child on. Lifestyle factors. We know that children who don't sleep don't heal. And it's really important to prioritize a good sleep hygiene and establish consistent bedtime routines to improve overall health and well-being and behavior. Exercise is a great detox methodology for children. They sweat and they discard a lot of toxins out through their skin. It helps to improve mood and anxiety and enhance overall well-being as well. And then limiting screen time, because these kids are so addicted to screens. We really want to get them away from screens, playing outside, playing with toys and books, and really minimizing screen time as much as possible because it's very, very detrimental to these children. So how do you navigate the medical system to get some of these tests maybe, or start looking into how to help your child? I can tell you that as a board certified academy pediatrician, we are not trained in really solving autism from the conventional medical model. You can still work with your pediatrician though to get the right diagnosis, to get referrals to therapies like speech and ABA and occupational therapy, maybe physio, whatever the child needs, whatever their weakness is, to help support. I definitely see transformational changes in children who are in ABA and speech therapy, so I totally recommend that. I also highly recommend feeding therapy, either using a speech pathologist that's trained in feeding therapy or an occupational therapist. Those are essential allied caregivers in the ecosystem of autism children. Next layer up is working with a functionally trained practitioner, such as myself, because we can dive deep. We know which tests to get. We know how to interpret the results on the test, and we know which supplements to curate for your child. So this is a very important next step up. An integrative approach is definitely combining the best of both worlds, and I would highly, highly recommend that for every parent and child. So building your support team, like I said, may include several specialists like developmental specialists or neurologists, working with a functional doctor for the overall health strategy, working with your pediatrician, maybe working with a functionally trained nutritionist because they understand the diet realm as well as the functional approach, and working with the therapist I mentioned earlier, ABA, speech, language, and feeding therapy, and maybe OT. Next steps and resources. You can definitely read some of my blogs that I have on my website at cedarsfunctionalmedicine.com. You can join support groups with other parents online. I have a Facebook group that is private, but there are many public Facebook groups that may be in your area, in your city or state, that you may find gatherings with your children and having like collective events that may be very supportive. And also reach out to me for a personalized strategy call and consultation. I do offer free consultations, but my spots are limited, so it's first come, first serve. And the address is down here at cedarsfunctionalmedicine.com/apply. And I think with that, we come to the end of our video. And I hope this has served you. This has given you some juicy details that maybe you didn't hear before. You're welcome to pick my brain. Come and join me on a strategy session. And if you have questions, please put them below this video and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you so much for everything, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.